Dad's acne face.
Well, look at my shirt.
Look at that head.
Look at my bad tie.
Sisters 29-year-old Crystal and 18-year-old Chanel have always known their father to be strong and healthy.
That's our parents.
As a father, really hands-on from a young age. Chanel and I have both been daddy's little girls. He's definitely very active, funny, vivacious. So he's the type of dad who would pick me up from school with music blaring and beep, and everyone would be, oh, Nick's here, you know. So he's been amazing, hands-on, fun, almost like a best friend. You could tell him anything.
52-year-old Nick Sarandis was an energetic and full of life father until 2 years ago when the girl's hero and main man in their life was struck down with excruciating muscle pains in the back of his head.
First started getting fasciculations in my hands. As you can see, the muscles move on their own, and there's uncontrollable spasms in the hands as well. And slowly I started noticing I was tripping up for no reason at parties and stuff, and I didn't know what was causing it.
After some vigorous tests and extensive surgery, on May 23, 2011, Nick was diagnosed with motor neuron disease.
I came home from school and I knew nothing, and then I went into my room and I overheard my aunties coming over, and I overheard them talking, and I knew my dad had been talking about different diseases and stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, I was just saying, you know, hopefully it's not the worst one, hopefully it's the better one we can fix. And then I just heard them and I broke down, and I fell to the floor and I broke out in tears.
Motor neuron disease, or MND, is one of the most debilitating diseases in the world, and it can strike anyone at any time without warning. Also known in the United States as Lou Gehrig's disease, after the great New York Yankees baseball player who was struck down with the paralytic illness in his prime in the late 1930s. Since then, this deadly disease continues to kill indiscriminately throughout the world. Doctor and MND specialist Ian Davis has been working in MND for the last 2 years and sees the effects of this disease every day.
Essentially, whenever one of us wants to move any bit of our bodies, let's say the finger, just like that, essentially all of us think about doing it, and then automatically that happens. But for that to actually happen in real terms, there's two nerves which are involved, one from the brain that basically travels down the brain into the spinal cord, and we call that the upper motor neuron. And that nerve talks to a lower motor neuron in the spinal cord, which then sends long sort of processes out into the muscles. And as they synapse with the muscles, that actually makes the muscle contract and move. So with motor neuron disease, essentially one or both of those types of nerves actually die. And as they die, those muscles which they normally innervate or they normally reach, they actually atrophy and weaken, and then ultimately themselves die. So essentially takes away your ability to move.
I just noticed between the fasciculations in my arms, they're like spiders crawling on the inside of your, if you can imagine it, or the inside of your skin. And you've got that happening in every part of your body as it progresses. And it's a very eerie, strange feeling, having no control over the spasms in your body.
As the disease progresses, the symptoms and the signs move, and so if it starts in your foot, it may spread up that leg across into the other leg, and then finally up the spinal cord into your arms, and then finally into the area which actually looks after breathing and eating. Or alternatively, if it starts up high, it can affect those sorts of things as far as speech and swallowing, and then your hand movements, and then move down so that you finally become like paralysed.
It's affected me in a lot of ways, because from doing the simple things of getting up in the morning, not being able to wash your face, not being able to comb your hair, not being able to dress yourself, put a pair of socks on or shoes. and not being able to do the day-to-day of going to work, washing your car or even driving a car, not being able to eat with your hands. It's like it's taken away my independence to be a husband, a father to my daughters, and to be in control of my own ability to take my family to greater heights in their life, and maybe missing out on a lot of marriages of my daughters, grandkids. I might not be able to see any, not being able to hold them in your hands. It's very hard to deal with.
To jump a bit forward, but Dad's already picked, if he's not here, substitute dads.
Yeah.
Microphones to walk us down the aisle, and you know, it's really, really tough.
Among these devastating effects, recent reports show that in the last decade, deaths due to MND in Australia have increased by approximately 44%. The reason for this increase is unknown. Dr. Davis has no doubt that despite these concerning statistics, this disease is still well hidden from the government.
With any type of disease, whether that be diabetes or motor neuron disease or MS, how much money the government puts into research into finding a cure is unfortunately directly proportional to the burden that disease has on society and what the governments have to fork out to actually look after these patients when they're in hospital. So when you look at a disease like motor neuron disease, where the average lifespan is only 27 months, the amount of time that somebody with motor neuron disease actually spends in a tertiary hospital having round-the-clock care is mainly in their final months, so in the final sort of 3 to 6 months. So from a government spending point of view, that's quite minimal compared to a disease like multiple sclerosis, where somebody can live a normal lifespan with numerous hospital admissions and cost the government a lot of money.
Along with the disturbing effects we see in motor neuron disease, most parts of the disease are still unknown. All the money raised goes right here to the Florey Institute of Neuroscience, where research is done specifically into MND. The lab hoped to find a breakthrough for MND sufferers and their carers as they come closer to finding the cause and the cure.
And we now know of about 20 genes responsible for MND. And what we know now is we've solved about 70% of genetic MNDs now solved, so we've actually pinpointed what the gene culprits are. And what we're doing at the moment is we're working away at that last 30%. And it's surprising how little the community knows about MND, and awareness is crucial. The funding situation or climate for medical research in Australia, it can be quite challenging, so the success rate on grants is less than 20%. And grants are awarded once a year. These are the federal grants. MND urgently needs more funding, and we're in a unique position in Australia that we have so many charities and foundations, and of course the MND Research Institute of Australia, which is the peak funding body for MND, which is supporting the dozen or so MND labs across Australia to generate results.
And for people like Ian, the lack of funding to find the cure for MND is not good enough. What sort of work are you doing for motor neuron disease?
I've been raising awareness and funds for motor neuron disease now for a little over 2 years. I did a charity ride down the east coast of Australia over 16 days, riding from Brisbane down to Sydney, and over that ride we've raised around about $150,000, which we're going to donate to MND research.
What is it that motivates you about this disease to make you do all this work?
Well, I guess a little over 2 and a bit years ago, I was actually diagnosed with motor neuron disease. I noticed a bit of a slapping noise when I used to walk, and Wes doctors call that a foot drop. And with each step, it just made a little sort of faint little slapping noise on the ground. And as like any male does, I just ignored it for a while, but essentially it didn't go away, and I got my wife to examine my legs, and she's a doctor as well, and when she was examining my legs on the bed, like I recognised the signs, and I realised that it was going to be one of two things. It was either going to be a big tumour on my spine, or it was going to be motor neuron disease.
What are you most afraid of by having this disease?
The more frightening is when the nerves to my breathing muscles die. Essentially, it'll be harder and harder to breathe, and I'm very afraid of that feeling of being short of breath, and at the same time I know that the only way at that stage to get over that would be to go into some form of ventilation where a machine artificially helps me breathe, and that in itself is very, very scary. Over the last 2 years it has progressed, and I'm essentially paralysed from the knee down on the left-hand side, and I've got a brace which holds my foot up and helps me to actually walk still. I was very guarded about the diagnosis. I kept it secret for a long time because I was afraid of what other people might actually think, and I didn't want people to feel sorry for me, and I didn't want to be seen as a sick version of my former self. And so when you get people like the media coming up wanting to basically put your story out there, it's a big thing. And I thought about it for a long time, and I think one of the problems with why the awareness of this disease is so low is that patients who get diagnosed kind of retreat, but I think if anything's going to change, some people have to stand up.
Hi, I'm Ian. I'm 34 years old, almost 35, and almost a year and a half ago I was diagnosed with motor neuron disease. 1 year's time from now, there's a very high probability that I won't be here. And even if I am, there's an even higher probability that I'll be more disabled. I may not be able to talk. I may not be able to get this story out there. But in 1 year's time, when I can't voice any of these thoughts or voice any of these concerns about the lack of research and the lack of knowledge and the lack of treatment, I hope that this film will be seen by other people who are yet to be diagnosed, who will be diagnosed, and they'll take up the fight.
I hope that everything which I'm doing now and all the awareness and the small amount of funds which I'm actually raising make a difference, and particularly in the way of actually heading towards a effective treatment, and then hopefully one day a cure, so that even though I'll have this disease and I know that no actual treatment or no cure will come in time, for me, hopefully the next person who's diagnosed has a chance.